All right. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Okay, so we are back. Welcome back, Facebook Live. I am so excited to be back in the presence of my girls. You would think we all, well, some of us, we do know each other, but some of us, you would think we've been around each other for a couple of years now. But I've missed you guys. How are you all doing?
We're doing well.
Doing well.
Miss you too.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. It's so much going on, and I know that you all have worked long days, and I appreciate you guys coming on. But I wanted to kind of share with our audience. We've had a lot of requests. I know you all probably had some requests from your communities about what's happening, what's going on. And because we're all in different areas and schools and districts, I thought it would be cool for us to kind of share what's happening in our areas and kind of give some relief to our communities and to our parents as well. Is that okay with you guys today?
Yeah. Yes.
Right. All right, so we're going to get started. And I want to introduce my panel members. I'm going to start at around the way that I see you guys. Dr. Charlotte Shoemaker, and if I'm going to ask you all to kind of tell everyone what your role is in leadership and how many years you've been in leadership. Dr. Charlotte Shoemaker, hello.
Thank you. Hi everyone, Facebook world. My name is Charlotte Shoemaker, and I am entering my 23rd year in education and my 4th year as a principal at an elementary school in Georgia.
Welcome back, Dr. Shoemaker. All right, and then Ms. Harris, welcome back. Can you tell us how long you've been in leadership and where are you coming from?
Yes, absolutely. Good evening, everyone. Rochelle Harris. I've been an educator for 27 years. I've been a principal for 7 years, and prior to that, I was various other things, assistant principal, literacy coach, and I'm really excited to be here and speaking to you guys from Georgia.
All right, welcome, and thank you for coming back, Ms. Harris.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Peterson, welcome back.
Thank you. My name is Latrice Peterson. I have been in education for 18 years, but in the Houston area, I am a 18 plus facilitator, which is a support staff for our teachers who deal with individuals with disabilities that are of age 18 and up.
All right, welcome back, Ms. Peterson.
Thank you.
Ms.
4 years.
Ortega. All right.
Hi, everybody. It's so good to be back. I'm Laronde Ortega. I've got 18 years of experience in public ed, 12 of those in site leadership role, and I'm currently starting my 2nd year in Orange County District.
Welcome, Principal Ortega. Thank you for joining us again. All right, Otway. Principal Otway, how are you?
Hello, everyone. Hello to my College Park family and my personal family. If you're out there watching, I am doing well, getting ready for this school year. I have been in education for over 25 years, but I still, every day you wake up and you learn something new. I have been a school principal for 10 years. This is my 10th year. And then we also have, all those years of leadership that add to that. But I'm in an elementary school in Georgia.
All right, welcome back, Principal Otway. Dr. Young, welcome back.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me again. I'm Atina Young. I am a leadership specialist now, former elementary principal. I was principal for 5 years. Prior to that, assistant principal and counselor. And so I am in Texas. And so I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me again.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. So we have a couple people that we have someone that will be joining us. Principal Brian will be joining us soon, and Principal Williams wasn't able to join us today, but we send our love to her, and shout out to Principal Williams, and hopefully she's trying to sneak a peek on her phone. So we're gonna get right on in. I asked you guys to come back, of course, because we haven't spoken since probably school's been out, actually. And so I'm sure you all have been engaged in a lot of planning, a lot of, self-care. Of course, we have to get to that. And so I wanted the audience to kind of get filled in and find out what you all have been up to. So if you all can who wants to share, I know you all are in different places. We're in California, Texas, and Georgia. If you can kind of share like what is going on in your area. Are you going back virtually? Are you in a hybrid? Are you face-to-face? Dr. Young, you want to start us off?
Sure. In Texas, we have, we're kind of mixed. I am in one of the largest areas in Texas, just like Ms. Peterson was saying, is Houston. And as you know, in Harris County, we're continuing to have some increased spikes in the COVID-19 virus. So as a result, what's happening in our particular region is we have some school districts who will say they are postponing the school year and starting at a later start. Some of those are starting well past Labor Day. And then we have some others who have decided to keep their current start dates in the state. And so they have an option, parents have an option to have remote learning, or parents have the option to have, virtual learning. And so it just depends on the district and where they are in the state of Texas. Like I said, Houston is a hard area hit. Also, there's San Antonio, Dallas, and up north as well. So based on those particular pieces, and even West Texas, parents get an opportunity to decide which way they would like to go if that option is available based on that particular school district. For me personally, as a parent, I'm going to add, my kids are in a totally different district because I live in the area, but my husband also is an assistant superintendent, so they go to work with him. Right. And so we have opted as parents to just have our children online, starting the school year.
The school year. Okay, Awesome. So I would love to we'll come back and maybe you can talk to us a little bit about if you're aware of those schools that are going face-to-face or doing a hybrid, what that might look like, and even the community and the pulse of how they're feeling about the face-to-face. I know different communities are different depending on where you go. There's some parents, contrary to popular belief, that really do, regardless of social and economic status, that want their children in the schools. And so I think a lot of people don't realize that. And so that's something I really want to talk about at some point for today. Principal Ortega, what's going on in your area?
Yeah, so I'm in California, Southern California, and several counties in the state of California have seen an increase in COVID transmission rates. So for us, our governor has decided that if you are in a county that has an increase in transmission rates and you're not meeting the criteria for your curve being flattened or there being a decline, that you must go back to school in a distance learning environment, so virtually. So that's pretty much where we are. I am in a county that is on that list. And so we will start the school year virtually. So we've basically, since I've returned to campus, been in the phase of planning the most rigorous and beneficial instructional program that we can for our students in a virtual environment.
Okay, awesome.
Part of that too, I should probably add that there is criteria for us to be off of that list and to come back to face-to-face. But we do have to meet that criteria, which includes that we have to not be, we shouldn't have active transmissions in our county for 14 consecutive days.
Got it. Okay, wow. Okay. All right, Dr. Shoemaker.
Okay, in our county in Georgia, our district presented 4 instructional model options to our parent. And of course, we know that the COVID-19 data is going to drive every decision that is made in terms of going virtual or hybrid or blended and face-to-face. But right now, our school district, we will be starting 100% virtually for all students in our county. The 4 options are to come back, of course, traditional face-to-face, blended A day, B day. We'll have a group of kids who will attend school on Monday and Wednesday, and then Tuesday and Thursday, and then everybody will be virtual on Friday. Like I said, we're 100% virtual, or the other option, the 4th option is the virtual learning academy. If parents do not want their children to return, when we come back face-to-face, if you do not want your child to return to school face-to-face, you do have the option to apply for a virtual learning academy.
Okay, awesome. Okay, Ms. Harris, anything you want to add?
Well, I think Dr. Shoemaker pretty much summed it
Yeah.
up because we're all in Georgia.
Right.
But just like with Dr. Young in Texas, you know, it just depends on which district you're in. So I'm sure if you speak to others who are in other districts, they have a very different plan. But right now, our school district has opted to be 100% virtual, which is, as you stated, some parents are not for that. They really want their students in school. And so many of them have concerns about the social emotional learning part, you know, with their students being 100% virtual. So we're having to really try to address all of those needs, as well as just planning and getting things prepared. As Dr. Shoemaker mentioned, I do know that once the COVID-19 cases begin to decrease, there is a plan for our district to bring students back to school on the hybrid model, which will be an A day and B day. Still some concerns with that, because then you have students who would only be attending school twice a week. Because if you're on an A day, you're there for 2 days, B day, you're there for 2 days. And then on that virtual Friday, everyone is home. So it's just really a challenging time. No matter what you choose, someone's not going to be happy. But right now, again, we're all set for the 100% virtual for the students in our district.
Well, I do want to thank you, Principal Harris. I do want to start by saying I wanted to say a huge thank you to school leadership. And here's Ms. Bryant. To school leadership and our teachers for doing such a wonderful job in the spring. They really had to pivot. And I know you all are administrators. You've worked really hard this summer to put things in place. I don't know about you, but that was one thing that I was more concerned about, was having that on my shoulders and ensuring that everyone was safe. Because we know, you know, in education, we always say safety first. You know, the first thing, get them in, make sure they're safe and get them home the same way you receive them. And that was a little stressful for me, making sure not only that my students would be safe, but how would I make sure that my staff were safe? So, and then as a parent, of course, because I work in a different district than my students attend, and I was concerned about what would happen if my students had to go back or had to stay home and I didn't, and so forth. And so I had to put myself in those shoes as my teacher. So that was really challenging work. And so in thinking about those plans, I know that part of the plan or part of the charge as a principal or as a school leader, or even guiding other principals, Dr. Young, is helping them navigate how to reopen the school, whether it's virtual or face-to-face. And we know that even if you're virtual, this is a, you know, a lot of people say this is an opportunity to be innovative, to really think outside the box, to really think about how we can embed things that we weren't able to embed before in our traditional schooling. So who would like to kind of share what are your district's plans for reopening virtually? Because it sounds like most of us are going to be doing, you know, virtual instruction anyway, online. What does that look like in your school or in your district? I know it's kind of broad, so you can kind of, if I were a parent coming to your school, what would virtual look like? What are some considerations?
Well, I'm in a district, I'll piggyback with Dr. Young a little bit, but my particular district has decided to go, you can choose to come face-to-face or virtual.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
So there's no hybrid, there's no number, there's no parameter. It doesn't matter. Everyone can return if they choose to. If they don't, it's virtual. The only thing they put in place was that if you choose virtual or in person, I guess in person, you can get an excuse to go virtual if you need to, in the case that you're exposed or sick. But if you start off virtual, they said you must stay in that particular learning environment for at least the first 9 weeks, right? Before the next grading period, before you can switch. So that's where, just to add to Dr. Young.
So in going back face to face, because I know one of the things, that reasons why our district, for example, considered the AB schedule was to reduce the number of students that would be in a classroom. So is that a concern in your area? How are they dealing with the social distancing, or the biggest thing, like we had kind of worked in our head how we would do things. The only thing I could not figure out was the restroom. That was the only thing I had not figured out as of yet, was how I was going to ensure that when they go to the restroom, because we can't be in there, like that monitoring piece. But what does that look like in a face-to-face environment right now? Have they said, are there any guidelines given out to schools?
For my district, they have not said. And because I'm on the special education end of it, our teachers in our district actually care for individuals that need total care. So they are tube feeding, they are changing, they are turning on beds, they are doing actual care that you would see in a facility like a nursing home or what have you. So I'm not sure if they're going to put parameters in place for that, because that would be a whole nother level of protection that they would need, I would think. So.
Okay. Dr. Young, what about you? I know you said you indicated that there are some areas around you that are going to face-to-face. Have they provided any guidance to schools? Because I know as a principal, I mean, you want to do the right thing, but we don't have all the answers. So I know that can be a stressful thing for an administrator who's having to make that decision or make adjustments.
And I would say it would be twofold, not only the administrator, but also on the receiving end, on the parent end, because when you guys know how it is. If you're an administrator, you have family members that call you because they think you have all the answers. And, you know, truth be told, I'm very transparent that I don't, but I can provide them with some questions that maybe they can consider. I know that several districts have had like town hall meetings. Some have just sent out communication, you know, via graphics or, you know, dedicated a particular section to the their web pages or social media accounts or whatnot. But I will say that, as you know, the first phase, and Ms. Peterson, you're more than welcome to, you know, interject. The first phase was looking at when are kids going back to school. Then the second phase on top of that was, well, what would it look like? So that's where the options come in. As we start to navigate over these next few weeks, I think we could be able to answer the questions a little bit more in depth with what that will actually look like, because they, most districts, and even the ones that my family members, they call me all the time, even the ones that my family members and the one that my children are a part of, we were required to fill out a survey. And so with the survey, I can only speak for the one for my children because I didn't get an opportunity to see any others, but it was like really detailed and explicit, you know, and I have more than one child in the district. So I had to list them separately. I had to talk about what option it was going to be. And I actually played with it if they were going face to face. And so if they were online, it said, you know, do you have the technology? Do you have internet connection? So that it could be individual based on the children. And if it was face-to-face, then it was questions such as, do you have transportation? Do you have adequate, you know, do you need assistance getting supplies and masks? So for that particular survey, it was very detailed. And I'm just assuming that they are working out the pieces of looking at individual children that, depending on whatever avenue they're going, and then giving us those plans later.
And I think for, at least for in California, and I can say I've got an amazing child welfare and attendance director who's really guided us as principals through this process. So in my district, we've been working simultaneously planning for a face-to-face open or virtual open with California Department of Health guidelines. And so really taking, like, wearing both of those hats, trying both of those on, because like you said, at any moment we have to be ready to pivot. And if we have to go back face to face, we want to make sure that we're 100% ready to do that at a moment's turn, but then also making sure that we're providing the strongest virtual experience for our students too. So recently, like for me, I did a perimeter walkthrough with my CWA. We talked about like signage and social distancing stickers for the ground, like things that are going to help us maintain that 6 feet of distance where practically possible. And also, you know, to let our parents know that we are taking this very seriously and that we're going to put systems in place, or we have systems in place. We've planned to have systems in place to ensure the safety for their kids. And so we've done the perimeter walkthroughs with her, as well as facilities, because we all know it's an all hands on deck situation. So bringing those people in, walking with custodial crew, discussing bathroom situations, looking at mock-up of classrooms, looking at 6 feet of distance in the classroom where practical. Those are all the things that we've done in preparation for, at least in my district, in preparation for a face-to-face return. And just like everyone else, I think that most districts do have some sort of phase system or stage system, because ours is very similar to what has been shared. Our board adopted a stage system that was originally going to start in a virtual environment anyway and move towards bringing students back gradually over time. But just our situation, because of where we are with COVID, we're not able to do that presently, but hopefully we will be able to.
So what we started in our district is we began all the understandings of planning, those very similar things that Ortega is discussing as far as how is it going to look in the building, physically distancing, where we're going to put classrooms, where we're going to put kids. And then 3 weeks prior to school, because our teachers come back on Monday, we were informed we were going universal remote learning. And so all that we had planned, we had put into place. Not that we felt super confident, but we were definitely moving in that direction. Then it was turned that we were going to have universal remote learning. And with universal remote learning, that means that 3rd through 12th graders will have devices. However, pre-K first graders will not, and 2nd graders will receive devices after the break. So when you think about all of that planning after the Labor Day weekend, the break that are like, break, we're on break. Well, when we go back, so when we look at the health department's report, we also are looking at it in 14-day cycles. So when we look at it in a 14-day cycle, when the first phase targets the pre-K, kindergarten, 1st and 2nd graders coming back, because those are the students who, if they don't have a device, then they're not getting that quality instruction. So our focus is, how do we make universal remote learning the most effective? And even though our teachers, I love my teachers and they ride hard for our kids every single day, we want to improve it and make it 10 times better than what it looked like in the spring, because we had time to play and plan and put it all together. So when we put it all together now, it's about, what does it look like? What are the minutes? And then thinking about now our reentry plan. Okay, as soon as the numbers go down within those 14-day cycles, when can we have those pre-K, kindergarten, 1st grade kids in our hands? Because you got to think about it. This is their first experience of school. The 1st graders only had half a year of school as kindergarten. And so we are really trying to say, what are they going to get at home from their parents? But as soon as those numbers turn into place, there'll be some changes with staff members who are targeting, 2nd to 5th grade. But what are we doing for our pre-K and our kindergarten and our 1st graders? And our rolling phase is 3 students at a time. So 3 students in the morning, 3 students in the afternoon from that teacher's classroom. So all of those pieces targeting, making the next 2 weeks, making our teachers feel comfortable and a part of the process for universal remote learning. But then also, all right, what are we doing as soon as we're able to bring kids back into the building?
Right, absolutely. I know in our district, similar to what everyone has spoken to on the panel today, we started very early in planning, and we worked very closely with the community members, even to the point of planning. We always made sure there was a community person on the task force, teachers on the task force. And that was something that I really appreciated about our district, and how they included all stakeholders in the decision-making process, because it affects everyone, even parents. I remember having a task force meeting. There were parents on there, there were students on there. And so because it's a community issue, it's not just a district issue, it's a community issue. So that was one thing that I really appreciated about it. And then stay in close contact, because to this day, just like I think the other day or the day before yesterday, we still get our numbers for our area and the cities that are affected in our district. So we'll know, what are the COVID cases in our school system. So I have to say, let me first say to the community, those who are watching, we want nothing more than our students to be back in the building. Believe me, it would be less work, one, and we just really miss our students. And to be honest, our teachers miss being in the building, because what I hear now is, can I still come to the building and teach if I want to, because they understand that learning environment, it makes a difference. And it's, even when you're teaching, they want that environment, they want to see their students. And so when we make a decision to go virtual, it's not because, for selfish reasons, it's really for safety, but we really want our students back in the building as soon as possible. So as soon as those numbers turn, we want them back. And so that's what we're hoping and praying that will happen for our students. But it brings up another issue, whether you're virtual or you are face-to-face. There's an issue still of equity. We had this conversation back in the spring about the inequities that we saw, or that we already knew, but it shed more light on it because everyone's sitting still, just like the civil unrest and everything's going on. You're focused on it. And you look up and you think you're doing well, and then you realize, oh my gosh, we're truly leaving students behind because we don't have everything that they need. And so there's been some conversation, and what I've heard, and even no matter which district you're in, parents who have students with disabilities, that's a big one, right? Because you have compensatory services, you had schools and districts trying to figure out how to provide those services to students, and at the last minute, and it didn't matter because federal government says you still have to service those students. And so people were really trying to adjust to make sure they have services. And even moving forward, I know that was a big piece in our conversation, is making sure that our students with disability, our English language learners, students in EIP program, they still receive their services. So how has those conversations come up in your planning and providing services to, just being equitable and for all students? Anyone can share on that part.
I know for my district, I'm actually on-site administrator for ESY. And so one of the things that our district did was we immediately said every child gets, and this for special education, gets the equipment they need, as well as any type of setup for connection and connectivity, free, what have you, any type of devices that they use during the normal school year, we got it to them, and they did that and just said let them keep it because they may need it for fall if they choose not to come back to school or we go virtual. And our district also purchased, I think it was about $80 million in technology to be prepared to roll out to everyone, no matter where you live, what have you. So, and also we've had great speech pathologists and OTPT. They are doing virtual meetings with families online. So we never missed a beat from spring all the way through ESY. And so that's the plan if they continue virtual, that they will get those support services continue.
Yeah, that free appropriate public education is key, right? We still have to ensure that they're getting the services that they need. And I remember even in the springtime, we had a special meeting just for our DES department, our Department of Exceptional Students, to ensure that we could get into contact with the parents, because we have students obviously in our building that this is not their home school, and they travel from somewhere else. And so we have to make sure now that we can get in contact with them and that we're still providing services, even to the point if we had to do a home visit and just, or, hey, look, we need your baby to get online and find out where they are. And I remember contacting some of those parents to make sure that at least they understood and knew that we're still going to provide services to your child, even though they can't be physically in the building. And so I know that was something that was really intentional to make sure that we were connected with those students, even with speech and with, OT, teleconferencing, whatever you want to call it. And I know that was something that was at the forefront of our conversations this summer in ensuring that students with disabilities, and even getting some direction from the federal and state, right? Because as recent as a couple of weeks ago, we started getting more guidance from them as to, look, their IEPs are still intact. Now you may have to make some adjustments in some areas, but you still have to service those students. So has that been a challenge for any of you, Ms. Bryant?
I was just going to jump in and also say, along with the support services, that the IEP meetings, compliance meetings, reevaluations, initial evaluations, we managed to stay within timelines, within compliance regulations at the drop of a hat. Yep. Parents had to work with us. We had to work with them. Some had never done a Zoom or a Google Meet, but everybody honestly was extremely flexible. We pulled our teams together and we made it happen. So our district has been very supportive of school administration, as well as making sure that our parents are involved in the entire process. And of course, you know, there may have been some hiccups, but we learned from some of those mistakes, and there'll be hiccups to come. But
Right.
you know, all in all, our parents know that we're here to do our ultimate best for these children, because absolutely they do need their services, and we're going to provide them to the fullest extent possible, whether you're EBD, LD, SLD, or you're in a self-contained environment. We have teachers who are extremely creative, who have lots of tricks up their sleeves to be able to make this thing work, you know, whether it's on the other side of a screen. It's amazing how our teachers can take an IEP goal and objective and make it doable and not actually be physically there touching the child. But that's when the parent also comes into play. We need those parents to be there with us. You know, if you do have a student that has emotional behavior disorder, okay, let me talk to mom or dad. Let's see what's been going on. You know, here's how we wrote the IEP. Here are the goals according to the IEP. Let's talk about Johnny's, you know, behaviors over the last week or so. Let me get some data points that I can take from you. Then I can determine how I can address Johnny when I'm having that one-on-one session with him.
Absolutely.
Also, let's see how social emotional learning can play into the achievement of those EBD goals when the child is in the general classroom setting with their teachers. So we have made it work under the craziest of circumstances. We just need our parents to trust us and to just continue to be flexible. Give us a little grace as well, because we're giving you grace too, but it's going to all work out for the best. We just have to remain positive, and our community, I think, is remaining positive behind us.
And to also understand for in our district with the parents, we've done huge trainings of being very clear to teachers in an inclusive environment. How are we going to keep that classroom in the virtual classroom inclusive? How are we going to keep the trainings that we provide parents inclusive? How are we going to ensure that our teachers are prepared in this virtual environment, because it is different? So our teachers have our support services have created training for the co-teaching environment in the virtual setting, for the IEP, how to run and manage an IEP in the virtual setting, and just how to start the school year off looking at the needs of the students, identifying the deficits, and then utilizing those resources. And those are provided through the district. But then at a school level, what we've done, and we just finished our meeting this week about if we're going to give the students, whether they're pre-K through second grade and they don't have devices, all students are getting packets. It's almost as if their backpack is going to be their little office. And so we're individualizing each packet for the students and their needs. If they need flip cards with laminated with clips on them, that will go into that student's individual packet for math or literacy for their learning. Even if we're using visual manipulatives for 3rd to 5th grade, every student might not need visual manipulatives or may not be able to use visual manipulatives, and they need hands-on manipulatives for unit 1, 2, and 3 in math, then they will get manipulatives in their bag. And so we're trying to organize that so that the teachers know that they're clear on what they're teaching, and then the parents know my child has the resources that's given to them when they pick up their backpack, regardless of the grade. So making the teachers feel comfortable that they understand that they're able to get to the kids, and then continuing to perfect that environment and provide the right training for the parents as well as the teachers who have to do it.
And all stakeholders, really, because even paraprofessionals, I remember having, paraprofessional academies. We're doing that, even this week, and making sure, because our paraprofessionals were even online, even though they're not supplied with a device or a laptop or a Chromebook, they were on their own devices or on phones, and they were still providing that support to the students. And so that was really, really key. And I think you're right, Ms. Bryant, the support of the district really helps a lot, because they understand and make sure that you have all your needs. And if we had any issue, we go to our district and make sure that they could help us address those issues. But the compliance piece was key, because you're right, we were able to stay in compliance, and it was a partnership. It was a true partnership. And that was what's key. It wasn't just all in the school. It was on the parent as well, to ensure that they were able to get to those meetings and to also express their needs. And so if you are a parent of a special needs child, you're entering into a virtual learning environment, I would highly encourage you to find out from your teacher or your case manager or your school administration, how are they going to provide that instruction for you. I know that's a big, big deal for a lot of parents with special needs, because they already feel somewhat, a heightened anxiety, because now my child is not in school, and those specific services, that appropriate services they're typically able to get, now I have to figure out how to give it to them, and I'm not trained for that. And so that's another reason why our district is really working hard to make sure that our parent liaisons and our support staff are able to provide those trainings for parents as well. So they'll have tools in their toolbox. They can support those, their students as well. And so even with our students with disabilities, our English learners, one of the things that we talked about was the learning gaps or possible learning gaps that we may encounter when our students return. With those learning gaps, because they were out March and April and May, and as someone pointed out earlier, if they were kindergartners, they really didn't get a full year of kindergarten. Have you all had some conversations at your district level as to how are you going to catch up, if you will, or how are you going to address those learning gaps? Because on one hand, we know that the curriculum has to move on, right? We have standards we have to address. So we can't stop for 3 months and address the past 3 months. And so we have to keep some consistency. So Ms. Harris, have you all talked about how you're going to address those learning gaps?
Yes, absolutely. That's been a huge conversation for us for some time, since we knew we got out in like you said, in March. So we were already preparing then, even when we didn't know how long it was going to be. How in the world were we going to address the needs of our students? So one of the things that we've talked about is just really focusing on trying to integrate the standards with one another. So although we have second graders coming in who have missed half of a year, if you will, there is no way that we can go back and teach all of those standards in isolation. So what we've started to do is to look at the standards that those students have missed and see how they pair up with the current standards that they're going to need in whichever grade they're going to. And so our teachers are already planning that. They're working with the academic coaches. They're looking at the students' data to identify where those gaps may be. So we are already geared up and ready for that. So another thing that we're doing is we're having vertical team meetings so that the teachers who teach 5th grade have an opportunity to talk to the teachers who teach 4th grade. So now they're going to know exactly where those babies left off, how they were performing on those standards, and where they need to pick up and go from there. But one of the things that we've really been pressing upon our teachers is that we're not going to stay in the land of remediation. If you stay there, you're not going to make it. So we're going to have to accelerate learning for all of our students and just pack those standards in. I know it sounds like a lot, but it's doable. This is something that teachers have been doing for some time now anyway, because even though you have students who may finish out a school year, each year, they're still coming with deficits. So teachers are accustomed to having to go back, look at those standards, identify those areas, and make a plan accordingly. And so that's what we're doing at this point in time.
Awesome.
On Fulton County, we ended the school year with the learning document that Ms. Harris was just referring to, as far as that compacted data and the compacted standards. So they took our standards mastery framework, they compacted it for the teachers before we even left. So we had that training in May. However, then what we have to do over the course of the summer is now start to build our units around those. But really, back to your point, when you look at it, we can't stay in the land of recovery, and we can't assume all students have gaps.
Absolutely.
Because if we assume all students have gaps, we're wasting our time as well as we're wasting their time. And often we hear, oh, everyone's going to be behind. Everyone's going to be behind. When you talk about students who are at risk, students who are ESOL population, our special ed, our turnaround schools, then that, if you have a cold, I have pneumonia. So it's even worse. And so really pushing that point of the pre-assessment, using the data coming in, we are using the first 5 weeks of school. We are having an assessment put in place, which is, nationally normed, iReady, and they are going to have to take it. The teachers are getting training on taking an assessment in the virtual world, which I just wait to watch that training and see how that goes. But this piece of, we have to shift our minds from staying in recovery, and we have to shift our minds really heavily on those best practices of what does my individual student need? Because we can all sit there and try to teach last year, and we're going to stay in pre-COVID, and we're going to be paying catch up, and it's not fair to our kids. So
as Overseer McKee says, skill set versus standards, and she also indicated evaluations will definitely have to consider exclusionary factors. Attendance impacts learning gaps as well. Absolutely, Overseer McKee. So that is something that I know that has been a discussion. I like the point that we can't assume that students have learning gaps, because in some instances, some of us might have thought, you know, because everything's going on, I'm going to work extra hard, right? And we have to give our parents credit, because perhaps they're also working on some things, because they also identify things. And now my child's at home with me. I realize, oh my gosh, there are some things that they still need to learn, and I'm going to address that. So they may come back to us ready and eager, or maybe having a break gave them some balance themselves. And so they have room and capacity to be able to engage in the work that we're going to be engaging in August or September. So you know, those practices, those best practices that we typically embed in our instruction, such as, you know, the backwards design, you know, assessing our student learners where they are, meeting their needs, differentiating instruction, those are things that still are important when we're doing the work in the classroom. That won't change. And again, we can't assume that they're behind. And then we can't assume that there's this big umbrella, they're behind in everything, because maybe they've excelled in some areas as well. But that goes back to assessing where your students are prior to giving that instruction, but continuously assessing, you know, ongoing assessment, so that we are meeting the needs of the learner. Absolutely.
If I could add.
Yes, absolutely.
What was already said, we've done the same thing. I mean, it's just we call them essential standards, or our district identified essential standards. It's all pretty much the same thing.
Right.
But one of the things that we did is we also implemented the vertical articulation, where, you know, what standards didn't you hit, and then looking at those essential standards and trying to, like we said, integrate. But then taking it a step further in the virtual environment is really looking at the beauty of a virtual environment, and the fact that we can really establish process, procedure, and protocols for small group synchronous learning, right? So we can give students an opportunity to get really prescripted instruction based on their need. So there really isn't any reason for us to stay in the land of remediation for a really long time, or to catch all kids under an umbrella of like everybody gets the same thing. So like in a virtual environment, we are really able to customize student learning. And so for like my staff, we took a lot of time last week really trying to come up with a robust plan that was going to lay out our expectations as educators of what our instructional day was going to look like. What was our whole group synchronous learning going to look like? And we're dedicating that, you know, that whole group, whole class time for like that SEL, that grounding, that mindset work, that digital citizenship work. And then going down like throughout the day into blended learning, like blended learning types of synchronous activities, where we have our small groups on rotation, seeing teacher doing this very prescriptive instruction, and then moving into the asynchronous stuff where, yes, they are going to have paper pencil activities where they're practicing things, or where they are going to do iReady. We're doing iReady too.
Yes.
And, and what they're doing, you know, so like our goal at my school is for us to maximize that live instructional time, so that parents don't feel or see their kids are only on a device, not interacting with the adult that's responsible for the learning. So I mean, taking the standards one step further by like changing up the instruction, I think is important.
And that's going to be really key. I know that's something that we spent a lot of time leading up into the school, opening school, was what would it look like in elementary and middle school and high school. And we had a lot of discussion about the instructional minutes, the screen time. As a district, we are focused on social emotional learning strategies. You know, we're being trained with Rethink Ed, not to plug in. Rethink Ed. So, and you're right. So we talked about, you know, how can we maximize our instructional time, because we still want rigor, we still want relevance, and we want relationships. So that was something that was really key. And how do we get that in one full day? And so, yes, in our district, for example, we have asynchronous learning. We have synchronous learning being live, asynchronous learning meaning not live in front of the teacher, perhaps I'm online doing an assignment, and then unplugged time, where I'm having maybe an assignment or a project that I'm doing that's offline, but I'm continuing with that work. And I think that's going to be really key in communicating to parents so they understand that as well. And one of the big things that is a push from our district is also making sure that the schedule is transparent to parents. Because again, parents need to know, what does that day look like? If I'm working from home as a parent, when are those breaks going to be? Because like you said, we're embedding the SEL, the brain breaks. We still have specials and small group instruction. So we're being really creative with using Zoom or the Google Classroom to create those breakout sessions. And most importantly, our special ed student teachers, our ESOL teachers, our EIP teachers still are providing services in small groups for those students. So that won't, discontinue. If nothing else, they can get to them a little quicker. I don't have to worry about travel time going around the hallway to get to them. It's just a matter. But the digital citizenship, one thing I can appreciate is that our superintendent is very clear about, we want to teach them the writing, the math, the reading, but we also want to teach them and meet the needs of their social, emotional side. That we want to build those relationships. We want them to be good citizens. So this is a good time for us to really be culturally responsive to our students. And so I think if you are a school leader that's out there and you're trying to figure out what to do and how to schedule your day, think about the learner first, right? Think about what time you have and be very aware about the screen time and what type of instruction you're providing to students. Because one thing I know, and I said this to my staff, the students who stayed engaged in the springtime were the students who had great, awesome relationships with their teachers.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't really matter what you do. You have the most awesome lessons in the world. But if you don't have a relationship with your students, you're going to have some difficulty keeping them engaged and keeping them online. And we already know that that goes into another equity issue, whether you have internet. We had students who didn't have a device, but guess what? They got the phones out. They went to a neighbor's house for internet. They did what they had to do to get connected with their teachers. Okay, awesome. So in thinking about that, are you all, so this was the thing for us. Were you all departmentalized, and if you have departmentalization, then did you change or did you go back? Did you keep the same? How did you do that? Did you have to pivot at all?
Yes, we had to pivot. We were departmentalized in 4th and 5th grade. And so when we were thinking that we were coming back to school, especially with the hybrid model or not, but still just thinking about COVID-19, a decision was made to not be departmentalized because we wanted to cut down on the travel time of our students. We didn't want them changing teachers and passing each other in the hallway because that's just too much interaction. So definitely that was a huge change for my teachers. I hope they've forgiven me for it by now. But it's what we had to do for the safety of our students. But it was tough because we've had teachers who were used to being departmentalized, and they may have been only teaching math and science for the last 8 years. And now they're going to have to teach ELA, math, science, social studies. So that brings on a level of anxiety for them as well. But being that we have this additional time for training, I think we've been able to really support them and help them to get the things that they need to be prepared. And my thing is, if you're a great teacher in math, if you're a great teacher in science, you can be a great teacher in ELA and social studies as well. It's just learning that content. And again, we have our academic coaches who are there to support. We have district level coordinators who are there to support. But definitely we had to pivot, and it was a quick shift, but we're making it through it.
So we did something a little bit different. We only have 5th grade, and we have 2 ELA 5th grades and ELA, and then we have math and science and social studies. So we kept with the plan, knowing that we were going back face to face, we were going to move the teachers, have the teachers move, and then they were straight across the hall. And then when the numbers were to reduce, then they could go straight across the hall to the same teacher because they only flip-flop to one class. With the virtual environment, there's another concern about parents being confused about where to go instead of just going into one class. So what we've worked on is streamlining where they go when it comes to logging into Teams so that they still just go to their reading class in the morning. They start off with their SEL lessons, and then that same link works for them, because in either way, there's a lot of confusion on where kids need to be online when they have to log into the portal. But we were able to keep the focus on keeping the teacher strengths in play when it comes to the virtual environment for 5th grade, but then really also, like Harris mentioned, really making sure that we're keeping the kids safe so that we're reducing movement and what our plan originally like I said, was to move the adults. And then, but we ended up in the virtual environment. We're going to keep it that way, but we only have 5th grade.
Right. One of the things that we had, first of all, I hope you all have a network for yourselves, because I think a lot of times, we've been spending so much time pouring into students and pouring into our teachers, making sure everyone is okay, that we have to be reminded that the administrators need SEL as well. Dr. Young, you work specifically with other principals. So I'm sure you've had conversations perhaps with principals and how, whether they're feeling good or overwhelmed or frustrated. How have you really talked to them about navigating their own emotions when dealing with this work? Because it can be a lot if you don't have a network to really, call on or work with.
Absolutely. And that's part of me. If I kind of go out with connection, we have some storms brewing in my yard. So that's why you keep seeing me to the right. So I lose connection. But you're absolutely right. A network is very key. And I think that's where a lot of people say, oh, I like talking to you. You're approachable. I think it comes back to those school counselor days. And so the first thing is, really truly hear them out. A lot of what I'm hearing, these are from former colleagues, friends that I've gone to school with. We have our own little, like a social media group that we all chit chat and check on each other every day or every week or what have you. But a lot of what I'm hearing is they're just anxious about the unknown. And so one of the things that I try to share with them is, okay, but look at the spring. It happened so fast. It was the unknown, but we were able to get through it. And so I kind of look at it as that fight or flight. You were at that moment in the spring, but just like you guys have said, you have an opportunity to really put some things in place. And so I like to go back and kind of have them share and think about, their why. Why are you where you are? And I've even had to do that myself. I will be very transparent. Why are we doing what we're doing and what brings me here? And so when looking at that, I do, like you said, provide some suggestions. One of them is the networking piece. I encourage them, if you've had some friends that you graduated from school with, or, when I go to conferences, I get people's Instagrams, Twitters, phone numbers. That's just me. Can you reach out to someone else and ask them how they're doing? But at the same time, a network that sometimes when we think of professional, we think of one realm. Do you have someone in your house that you can network and have a conversation, with and kind of unpack these things? Because you may see it in one perspective, but they may see it in another. And they may not see it as the campus leader. They may see it as, okay, you are a human being and it's okay to, be anxious, be frustrated. It's okay to cry, So all of those particular pieces, kind of go hand in hand. And I will agree with you about the networking piece, because I think that is, I don't know about you guys, but that has been kind of one of my saving graces. And then on top of that networking piece, I know you're probably going to get to but that self-care, because although you're networking, what are you doing to take care of you?
Yeah, absolutely. And so what have you all been doing to take care of yourselves? We know what you've been doing.
Yes, this is Shoemaker.
Go ahead, Dr. Shoemaker.
I was going to say, just staying connected to positive people.
Yeah,
and being able to know that, like Dr. Young said, hey, I'll cry. I can cry. It's okay. But really staying connected to positive people, like women in the group that we have this evening. That's been helping me.
So I have a principal group. Every morning we have a book and we read. It's, of course, I'm horrible with names, but it just talks about every day for 5 minutes in the morning. We read a part of the book and talk about how we're going to be brave. And that just like sets us off in the morning, just in 5 minutes. Sometimes like, who's reading? Well, pull over on the side of the highway. So you can read, but we try to get that in every day at 7:30. So then by 8 o'clock before we start our day, and this is of course with the 8 to 4 work time and not the 7 a.m. work time, but trying to make sure that we do that. I have a principal group that every Tuesday and within our district, we decided ourselves to help navigate. We get on the call and we start navigating, asking questions. We're in zones, and principals from other zones, we just sit down and, well, what are your thoughts about this, to kind of lighten the work? And that's not what I interpreted as, so that has helped. I also have a devotional that I listen to at 8 o'clock in the morning on Instagram that's live. And so that has been those things that you consistently put in your lives. Is, you know, it's not all about the vacations, but that was important too.
Yeah.
But those are things that you have to do, and just you just don't have time for negative people. And negative people, you know, people who need things from you, because sometimes we're givers in our careers.
Yeah, we're
natural givers, whether it's principals at the school level, you know, working like Peterson or Dr. Young, who's serving all of us, and we're natural givers. And so we're going to naturally give to those friends or those people who are drawing for us. And we just know that we love what we do, and we need to be prepared for what we do when the adults walk back in the building, when the kids walk back in the building, and we're not going to be able to do it. And so for me, my blinders are on, and it's not about just people who bring joy or happiness. It's about people who have that energy and are going to feed into your energy. And then when you are able to handle that balance, you can go back to the balance, but it's just almost being selfish in a weird way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've been fortunate enough since I've been in Los Angeles. I'm caring for my mother. She's almost 80, retired principal from LAUSD, and she has had some medical issues, but her mind is very strong, and she is still a principal. So every morning we have our coffee, I make her breakfast, and I sit down and I tell her everything that's going on, and she just has a few words to say, and it's always like, okay, that's what I need to do. She's been my mentor all my life. And so I can honestly say during this time, this is the best place that I could have been, because she's just a natural born leader, and education, she breathes it. So that has been a great outlet to me, even though it's work on my end as well, kind of wearing multiple hats. It feels good to lay in the bed next to her and just talk. So.
Well, you all given some good tips. If you are an administrator, whether you're a veteran or a new administrator, I think these are tips that you definitely can put in your toolbox. The networking, like you said, whether it's someone professional or just in your family or friends, and just having that outlet to be able to express. I know, you know, sometimes we also don't express our feelings because we're leaders, right? We are supposed to wear the hat. We're supposed to be strong for everyone else. But sometimes you don't want to be strong. I don't feel like being strong today. I want a bit. But then you get back on, you pivot, and then you're positive again. And so you know, and again, going back to someone mentioned earlier, knowing your why, that's what's has kept me grounded. Is I know why I'm doing this work. And it's so interesting because since we've been out, or since the pandemic, things have been clearer for me in terms of not just professionally, but personally. And so I don't know, that reflection has really helped me, just being still, even though I'm not still, but I am still. It's been really, I've probably poured more into myself and my personal things than I've had in a long time. And so that has a lot to do with being connected with positive people. And, you know, Dr. Shoemaker and Ms. Bryan and Ms. Harrison are in the same district, and we constantly, you know, pick up the phone and call each other, and we're constant support to each other and other administrators, and former administrators. And that's the beauty of it, is that, like you said, we're natural givers, but we also encourage each other and we share with each other. And so, you know, we pray with each other, you know, we lift each other up. So whatever's needed, that's what we do. And that's when you know that you're in the right place. Like, you can't have it any better than that. It's just a beautiful thing. Before we leave out, one thing, because there were a couple comments, support system. I want to go back to a comment someone said, and the students want to know. I think that's when we were talking about those schedules and parents needing to know. That's a really good point, is that students really need to know, and to help with their anxiety as well, what is it going to look like virtually for me? So that's something that we need to make sure that we don't, you know, lose sight of, that we have to make sure that we're communicating with our students, with our scholars, about what does that virtual learning look like, so they will be prepared as well. Some of the things I've started doing, I've only done a couple of times, I said I was going to do it more during the school year, is doing lives just in my school Facebook page. And I, you know, what I found is that parents were really, really appreciative about having that someone, although you're not talking to them, but speaking to them about what's going on, speaking to the students. And so that's something that if you're an administrator and you have not tapped into speaking to your community, school community on a live session, whether it's Instagram or Facebook, can be very powerful as well. And just give them a glimpse of what's going on, because it's one thing to read it. It's a lot of information out there. You know, some of us say, oh my gosh, we put so many things out there, and people still ask the same questions about things that we've already put out there. but I can imagine it's pretty overwhelming. When I looked at my website today, we had a lot of stuff on there, but we were trying to keep them informed. But then I thought, well, what if I'm a parent and I'm a new parent? And how do I figure out what's important all on this website? And so we might need to do some cleaning up because I don't know what I'm supposed to be looking at right now. I don't know what surveys, 5 different surveys out there, just being mindful about that. And so my last question leading to that is, as a principal, if you were talking to your families and your parents right now, what would be one advice? We do a long time for one, so we'll go around robin. What would be the one thing you would tell them to do in order, and you can ditto, but in order to prepare for their students' virtual learning? One thing. We're gonna do a 3-second pause, and then we're gonna start with Ms. Peterson. I'll go to up on my screen.
Parents, I think I would say, the one thing I would say is flexible. Be flexible.
That's it.
I took it.
Yep.
I took it.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna change the game now. You can't repeat.
Okay.
You gotta come up with a new one. This is gonna be fun.
Everybody want to be next, so you don't take theirs.
Right. Okay. Okay. You have to be flexible. Yes. Okay. Next. I'm gonna pick Otway.
I'm gonna say, start putting your family schedule together. Start putting your schedule. Once you get that class schedule or how it looks, start putting your schedule together so that you don't run into this being overwhelmed as a family. Kind of look at your schedule, look at what the school schedule is for all your children, and start thinking about that, because whatever happens within those minutes and that time, you at least want to know. I'm going to add Peterson's flexibility. You want to take the flexibility within the structure of the schedule. Let's see how talented we are as principals, how we can all put it all together. But I would say to manage the flexibility, really look at the schedule and the structure for your family as compared with the school.
Okay. And so while we're giving these tips, I need someone in our audience to, so far we have be flexible and put a family schedule together. So if someone can put that in the chat box in our community out there, I will be forever grateful. Okay, the next person I'm going to go to is Dr. Shoemaker.
Trust us, take our hands, and let's walk this journey together.
Yes.
Like that.
Yes.
Okay. And then Dr. Young.
I would say do not be afraid to ask questions. And if you ask a question and you do not get a response at that time, just know and we ask that you practice grace, because we are all navigating this new normal together.
Awesome. Ms. Bryant.
I was going to say, I would ask our parents to not stress. It's going to be okay. And I want us to remember that our children feed off of our emotions. So if they see the adults stressing out, then, what are we going to expect these smaller children to do? We have to hopefully ensure confidence in these babies. So I'll just ask parents to not stress. And again, give us grace, as I mentioned before, because as Dr. Young said, we're all in this journey together. We're going to figure it out. We're going to make it work. It's going to be okay.
Okay, awesome. Ms. Harris.
I would say create a space for your child to work in that's free of distractions. A little spot that they can call their own. It has all of their supplies where they know they can go to daily, so that they're not running around the house trying to figure out where can they go to work. And the other thing, like Dr. Shoemaker said, was trusting us. I was going to also say, trust your child. Our babies are brilliant. They're very tech savvy. They're innovative if we give them that freedom to be creative. So pull back a little bit and trust your child.
Awesome. Yes.
Principal Ortega.
Oh my gosh, Principal Harris took my answer.
I know. I gotta think. I gotta pivot. That's my new word.
But I will say that I would advise parents to just be patient. This is a marathon, not a sprint. Like, you're gonna get your space organized. You're gonna get your schedules coordinated. You're gonna learn to be flexible. But just be patient with yourself and your kids and your teachers, because we're all working together.
Okay. Did I get everyone? Okay. I think my advice to parents, you all said everything, it was so good. my advice to parents would be to make sure that you observe your child. Because even as a parent for myself, I noticed that when we were in the spring, there was a difference between my older children, obviously, and my younger child. Whether it was through behaviors or things they would say or how sad they were, excited. So really listen to them and take time to talk with them. You know, if you had that routine where when they came home from school, you sat them down, or at the dinner table, you talked about your day and what happened and how you felt about it, continue to do that even in a virtual environment, because you'll find that you will find out a lot about how your child is feeling, and that you may have to perhaps even advocate for them on their behalf sometimes. So for example, if your child is in a school where it's just a lot of work, because this is it's just a lot of work. And for me, for example, I felt that way for my older children. While they were in high school, middle school, I thought it was just abundance of work. And there was no grace given that we were virtual and had to pivot. It was just like, okay, you have a device provided to you, so everything's normal. For one child, it was okay. For another child, it was like, and then trying to communicate that was a little difficult. So I would say just make sure that you listen to your children when they are expressing how they feel about things, and observe their non-verbal behaviors as well, so that you can kind of see where they're thinking and where they are. Because those students who are maybe coming into this and may have some anxiety, you may see some changes in their behavior, and you may have to address that a certain way. So that would be my advice. Well, I appreciate you guys coming on. I know you all have been working hard. Many of you in the middle of pre-planning or about to get in pre-planning, or you've been in pre-planning for a week. I just want to say thank you guys for joining me. As always, we said we're going to do it for real, because I'm going to send you all an invite just off live, where we're going to connect and just stay in touch, because you all, there's a reason why I keep asking you back. One, because the audience really like you, and they can connect with you, which says a lot about you as a person. And two, because I do learn a lot from you guys when we come together. And so although we're sharing this information with each other, I hope that there's other administrators out there, or other leaders who are working with other administrators that have gleaned something from this, and they had got something, to put in their own tool belt. So I want to say thank you. I wish you all the best of luck this school year. I'm looking forward to you all coming back. I'll give you a break. I won't do it soon, maybe, before the holidays, and just see how everything is going, with the virtual. Is it working out? Because for me, for example, with pre-planning, it was awesome. We were nervous going in, but pre-planning was awesome. It was awesome. I don't know, it was an extra 3 months. So it was really like 3 months. And then the summer, I don't know, teachers are, excited. They're asking questions. They want to know things, but the mindset is just, it's the energy is awesome. And so I'm really proud of my staff. And I know you all probably feel the same way about your staff and the administrators you work with, but I just want to say thank you. And I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful school year.
You too.
You too.
You as well.
Stay safe, stay healthy.
Same to you. Same to everyone.
So Facebook family, thank you as always for supporting us. Thank you for supporting Principal Captain Kirk and coming on here. Some of you have been on here every time. Thank you for supporting your leaders. And that's a true testament to the type of leadership that they have in their schools and their organizations. And it does not go unnoticed. And we just want to say, thank you. And the work that we do this for you. We do this for our families. We do this for our students. We sacrifice a lot, but this is what we chose to do. This is our why. And we hope that you appreciate it. And we look forward to partnering with you this upcoming school year. So I don't have any exit music, but if I did, it would be Beyonce's Black Panther song. All right, but thank you, Facebook, or Wake Up Everybody, whichever one. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Facebook family. We'll see you all again.
Bye.
Tune in next week on next Wednesday. Oh, I gotta do a special shout out to Trendy Teachers, Black-owned business. She made this shirt, and Black Girls Teach. Give a shout out, Black Girls Teach, who gifted this to me. So I have to.
You gotta stand up so we can see it.
Stand up. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
Trendy Teachers. Yes. Nice. So I'm trying to support those Black-owned businesses and give shout outs to them. And So I want to say thank you, and I have some more shirts coming up. And then tune in next week. I have a very, very special guest. We're going to send Sankofa series, so you have to look back in order to move forward. And that special guest is my father, who's going to give us some guidance. He's a former civil rights activist and Black Panther and all those things. So we want to hear how are we doing? How does he think we're doing? And what are some tips he can give us moving forward as leaders in the schools? So I hope you all are able to tune in next week. And we are going to be out. So bye, Facebook.
Bye-bye.